Welcome back to day 2 on the Mako build, and we have wrapped up pretty much everything on the main part of the build. All we have to do now is just to take care of sanding out the fins, cleaning these up so that they're nice and smooth. You can see that the fillets are fully cured up here. They're looking good. And the what we mentioned at the beginning of the build, the plywood here has a much nicer grain, much denser grain. It's easy to sand out, it's easy to smooth out. It doesn't really require a whole lot of sanding sealer like balsa does. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is just start sanding these out, and then we're going to apply a little bit of sanding some sealer primer on here, and we'll run through a couple coats of that, of sanding, spraying primer, sanding again, and we'll get them nice and smooth. So let's get to it. I'm using 220 grit to start here, and you can see that even with 220 is not a very heavy grit, and even with that, you see how quickly that smooths out. And I'm going to go ahead and move up a little bit onto the fillet as well, just to give the fillet some softness, so even that out. And you can choose to smooth over the leading edge of the fin or not. I am going to go ahead and do that in this case because I feel like these are such organic shapes. They're really pretty. And I'm going to leave the trailing edge completely as is. I'm not going to touch the trailing edge, but I'm going to go ahead and round over the leading edge of these fins when I finish these up. Everybody's favorite videos are sanding videos, right? If you haven't seen this little tool on Amazon before, you might want to look into it. Rather than getting canned air and blowing your workstation off with canned air, this is a little rechargeable fan. It's not quite as strong as a canned air would be, but it does a pretty good job of just getting all the dust off of your workstation here. Alright, that's nice and smooth for that one. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other two fins, get those taken care of, and then I'm going to apply some filler spray paint. Be back in a jiff. Okay, that's the first round of sanding sorted out, so I'm going to go ahead and start applying some filler primer. And I'm only going to use filler primer on the lower part of the fin can here and the fins themselves. And you can see here, at least I hope you can see here, that just the first round of sanding with the 220 grit has done a pretty good job sealing these up and making the grain nice and smooth. And I've also done some sanding on the fillets themselves here. And so we're going to do a couple rounds of that. The filler primer that I like to use personally, everybody's going to have their own stuff, but I like to use this Rust-Oleum Automotive Primer, filler primer. It's a high build formula. This works really well for me. Some people some people have different preferences, but I like this one a lot. And it's going to do a pretty good job filling in all of the excess stuff here. And I'll go through probably 2 to 3 rounds of primer, sanding, primer before I'm happy with it, and these are nice and smooth and clean. So I'm going to let you go at this point here, and when I come back, this will be all primed out and sanded, and you can see how that looks when it's finished. Alright, we've gone through a couple rounds here of primer, and we're getting down to the nitty-gritty of sanding it out. I'm down to 1000 grit, and I'm using it as wet dry right now. I've done three rounds of primer on this and sanding it out between the two. You can see here pretty much all the grain is gone, so we're in good shape there. I'm going to finish sanding this out with the 1000 grit just to smooth it out finally, and I'm going to go with the paint job that was on the box, or pretty much the same thing. I'm going to go with this bare metallic blue for the main body, and the nose cone will be this Rust-Oleum bright finish or bright coat aluminum metallic. That gives a really nice shine to it. So let me just wrap this up here. I'm sure you guys don't want to be seeing sanding. You've seen that in plenty of other videos, and when I come back here, we'll have this pretty much all done and finished up. I'm hoping to actually have this launched probably without the decals on it. I'm going to try and get it up in the air tomorrow, but we'll see how we go. Okay, welcome back to the final installment of the Mako build here. It's time to do the decals. In this case, they're not really decals, they're peel and stick vinyl with this really metallic adhesive here. Very pretty. But they are essentially vinyl decals, so we can apply them really easily with a little bit of gently soapy water, which I've got here in a spray bottle here. I've seen people try to apply these as if they're regular stickers, where they put them down without anything else, and they'll mess them up because they'll stick them down, they stick immediately, and they can't remove them to reposition them if they need to. And some of these decals here, you might need to do some repositioning. You'll notice that this one has a big silver band that goes across the middle of it. Now it's going to make it easy because we have a delineation line here, but even without that, I'm going to show you how to apply this using just soapy water. Anybody who's ever done vinyl appliques will recognize this. It's the exact same technique. It's very easy to do. And we're going to go ahead and get started with it. Let's go ahead and start with the one that might be the most difficult, which is going to be that ring around the middle of the rocket. And the rocket actually has a nice, easy delineation point from the lower end of the body tube to the upper end of the body tube that we're going to go ahead and use. Let me take off the nose cone to make it a little bit lighter and easier for us to handle. I've got some paper towels here off to the side because I'm going to need to wipe away the excess positioning fluid here. And I noticed that these metallic vinyl decals, they can be a little bit difficult to lift up. There's a lot of decals on this that we aren't going to use. We're not going to use any of these optional decals for the Mako modifications, the 38, the 2X or the 3X motor mount, anything along those lines. We're just going to go with the basics since we just did this, we just did this right out of the box. So the first thing I'm going to do with my hobby knife is very carefully get up underneath the corner. And the metallic ones scratch a little easier. And we're going to try something else here. These don't seem to be cut all the way through. There we go. All you have to do is get your knife under one edge carefully and slowly work it up. And then peel these slowly because they're not cut all the way through, like I mentioned. I have a feeling the laser itself doesn't cut this this vinyl, this metallic vinyl, as well as it does regular vinyl. Because I've run into that problem with the Apogee Peregrine as well. So I'm peeling this real slow. And there's a part here it wants to hold on to, so I'm going to use my knife to very carefully cut that spot away. There we go. There we go. Now you can do one of two things once you have this. This is very grippy, very sticky. So I'm going to just prime that a little bit. And I'm not going to worry too much. You see, I'm just using a little bit of the soapy water. Let's get these electronics out of the way. I'm going to start off from what's the back end of the rocket. I'm going to start from where the launch rail is going to hit. And I'm going to follow the line right here. And since I have the soapy water, I can sit here and adjust it just a little bit as needed. Now we're going to clean that off. And while I hold the decal down, I'm going to very gently squeegee out the remaining soapy water from underneath the decal. There's going to be some that stays behind, and as it evaporates, it allows the adhesive to grip the model. Now they built this so that it overlaps, the end here overlaps just a little bit. It's pretty much perfect, dead on. But there's a tiny little bit of overlap, which is a good thing. You could trim that if you wanted to. That's not really looking enough for me to worry about trimming, so I'm just going to continue taking the water out from underneath it. Okay, that looks good. Let's go ahead and do these Apogee meatballs here. I'm going to peel this away here and see if I can use that to pop the meatball out from behind. Yeah. That allows me to get my finger up underneath it. Same thing as with that strip though, because the metal doesn't really cut all the way through the vinyl. Peel these slowly, like so. And these are going to go essentially right here, but we don't want to just put it on willy-nilly. I'm going to apply a little bit of water, soapy water, to the bottom of it. And I'm just going to eyeball these. Let's go up a little bit higher. That looks good. Now, since these go around this curved surface and it's a circular decal, they're going to want to try and lift. So you just have to hold down with one finger and continue removing the water with the other finger until they stop trying to lift up on you. But if you don't hold down with one side while you're removing the soapy water from the other side, it is going to move around on you and get you messed up. All right, that's one down. Let's move on to the next. Same thing, we're going to try and pop the meatball out from behind. Sometimes easier said than done. There we go. Little spritz. Not too much. Try and keep it at about the same level. It's a little too high. That's a little too low. That looks just right. Bet you didn't know we were going to Goldilocks this stuff today, did you? So I used a little less of the soapy water this time. As you can tell, this is gripping faster. But you still have to take your time and rub it down to sort of burnish it on to the model. Last one. Isn't it funny how you can misplace something that's 6 inches away from you? It feels like as you're removing these decals, it rips off of the backing paper easier going one direction versus the other. So just pay attention as you're removing it. If one direction feels easier to rip, just go with that. Don't try and fight it. We do the meatball. Now, if you really wanted to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, you could measure between the fin and the bottom of the meatball and get it absolutely perfect all the way around. But just bear in mind that nobody's really going to be looking at all three together. The most they'll ever see is two. Eyeballing really never hurt anybody, except actual rocket scientists. All right, we've got 3 apogee meatballs on. They look pretty good. This doesn't have a whole lot of decals. I'm not going to worry about doing the little silver dots on the fins for the video. We're just going to move straight on over to the big ones, the big Mako sharks, because that's going to look pretty. And these are going to be, these might be a little difficult to remove, so let's find out. First of all, let's see if we can remove them from behind. That was nice. And we're going to try and pop the other one off at the same time, if we can. There we go. Make sure we didn't rip the fin. We didn't rip the fin, but the backing didn't come all the way off, so I'm just going to very carefully score here so it doesn't rip. Okay. I'm trying to do these slow and careful because these are kind of the decals that are going to make or break the model, and I am trying not to rip it. These look very cool. And I'm using my X-Acto blade to just cut away the excess as I move along. There we go. All right, we'll leave that right like that. Let's start with this big fish. Now we're going to try and get this along the side evenly here. So we'll go ahead and give the model a squirt as well as the decal this time, because we might need to take this and reposition it. And see, doing this is nice because if I say, oh wait, no, that's not the right spot, I can easily pull it up without damaging the paint or the decal because of that soapy water underneath. So that's a little lower than I want it to be. Let's put it up just a bit higher. And we're going to start burnishing it down. This is going to take a minute, so we have to be patient as we do it. It's not instant. We don't want it to be instant because if it was, then we might wind up screwing it up if we misplaced it. Modeling teaches us patience, and it occasionally teaches us new no-no words. That's what I tell my kids anyway. All right, that looks pretty good. It's time to move to a new piece of paper towel. I don't know. I think I might want to reposition this. And there's still enough water underneath it, because we do have to wait for it to evaporate. Do I want to reposition it or not? Nah, we'll leave it as is. That doesn't look bad. Whoop. One moment. Sorry, I had to find the other one. So it's trying to rip right here, so we're going to just continue that cut, make sure that it's cut all the way through. There we go. Get that glue activated and the water out from underneath it. And there we have it. Now we're down to just the last couple things before we can get this model ready for launch. First of all, let's get the nose cone tied on and the parachute set up. Got a shot cord here. Got our nose cone right here. I'm just going to use an old fisherman's knot, which is what I usually use for these. 2, You'd be amazed at how strong these knots are. This is strong. Harder you pull it, the tighter it gets. Now, I don't like attaching my parachute to the nose cone. This is a point that can easily break. I've seen that happen countless times. So I don't really ever like doing this because, you know what, a nose cone is pretty inexpensive compared to the work of an entire model. I would rather see the nose cone fall off and go ballistic, because especially when it's light like this, than watch my entire model fall and the nose cone drift away on a parachute. So we're gonna create a loop right here. Alright, we got a strong loop right there. And we have our 30-inch parachute that Apogee provides. I put my mid-power models parachutes on a snap swivel. This kind of snap swivel is the strongest one. I wouldn't really trust any other kind of snap swivel, but these wire ones here. And there's a ball bearing. There's a small ball bearing in this swivel right here. I would not trust this really with high power, just so you know, but for low power and mid power, these are okay to use, and it makes it really easy, makes them interchangeable if you need to move this parachute out to somewhere else, and the swivel keeps the parachute from tangling up too much. Alright, so we have our nose cone on, we have our swivel, our parachute set up. Let's go ahead and just prep our shot cord here. If you've never done daisy chaining for your model rocket, it works really well to help get rid of some of that energy from the ejection charge. Let's see if you can see this online on get the first one started. And there's other tutorials for this that if you want to look closer, but I'm going to try and show you how. So what you do is you start with a loop. You take this end, push it through the loop, and then you can either tighten this one up to start, like that. You see, that'll come right undone. Or you can leave it loose, and you continue doing that. Take a loop, this end, push through the loop, now you have another loop, this end, push through the loop, and you just continue this until you're at the end of your shot cord. See, if you hold on to the ends, see how it does? It looks like that. It's going to shorten your shot cord a lot to make it a lot easier to put into your body tube. And as the ejection charge comes out, these will come out like this, and the friction of the shot cord coming undone like that will help slow the ejection charge. Basically, it helps to prevent zippering. I saw this on an Apogee video, and then I had to have my kids show me how to do it in real life because I didn't quite get it from the video. But my daughter looked at me as if I'd grown a third head and said, "Why are we doing daisy chains for rockets?" Okay, that's our shot cord all set up. We're going to just pack our parachute real fast. This model does come with a parachute protector that you can use if you want, but I'm just using regular dog barf to keep the heat down, which I've already plugged in here because this is going to go up next week. There's the model. We're going to pack the shot cord down. Got the parachute in above that. And we are all set. This is ready to launch. That's the Apogee Mako. Can't wait to see it up in the air.